Throughout my life and in our restaurants, cocktails have played as important a role as wine. Lally and I wrote a book called In the Land of Cocktails. Our final panel is Cocktails Take a Seat at the Big Table with Wine and Food. And I'm going to hand this off to Dan Davis in a minute, the wine guy. Don't let that fool you, the man likes a cocktail. But he is a consummate professional and runs Commander's Palace wine program so well, our co-moderator, Mitch Frank, and Wine Spectator honored us with a grand award. Dan is a leader in the beverage world. He is my colleague, my friend, and my teacher. We have a lot of interesting people that Dan is going to introduce you to today, and you've got your drink that you can compare to. But Dan, we got this empty seat situation.
Well, you got to figure that out.
So we need somebody from this crowd that knows a lot about food and wine and has a great palate, has a lot of fun. I'm looking, wait, there's some lobbying going on. There's some lobbying. I think I see Dickie over here somewhere. Where's Dickie Brennan? Dickie Brennan, come on up here.
Come on up.
Come on. Come here, Dickie Brennan. Come here right now. Viens ici. Viens ici. This man's one of New Orleans' favorite restaurateurs and my cousin and knows a lot about drinks and food and wine. So come get a mic. Where's he getting a mic?
We're going to mic him up right here.
We're going over here. Okay, here's your mic.
Get your name tag.
Y'all,
well, thank you, T.
Y'all have a ball. I'm drinking now. Okay.
Boom. Well, thank you, T. I appreciate it. Friends, what an amazing, amazing day, no? Wow. We've arrived at the final panel of the day. And, you know, T could have tasked me with putting together a lofty intellectual discussion of the history and influence of French cuisine in America, or a panel of winemakers, I'm the wine guy, to discuss the parallels between European vines and those of the Americas. You know, something really deep. But no. My esteemed role here is that of head bouncer. I'm going to be trying to keep these distinguished panelists, from coming to blows as they argue over booze. Not a bad way to end the day. So it probably was a bad idea at this point to stock absinthe in the green room. If I'm looking at your faces right. All right, so what's the big idea here? On this panel, you know, we wanted to talk about if it's high time that all of us fancy wine people start thinking about seriously considering cocktails as pairings on our menus alongside wine. It's that simple. To accomplish this, we asked Chef Tori to come up with 4 dishes that would be a challenge to pair beverages. And then we had our bar team headed by Kristen. She's running around here getting the shakers together and all of that. We had them pair cocktails to these food items that Chef Tori and his team created. And then we had the wine team, guilty, pair the wines. Today we're going to present those pairings to our esteemed judges on the panel and see who comes out on top. I know who I'm voting for, but I don't get a vote. While we're getting Dickie settled, you're all settled, you've got your mic? We're all good? All right, good deal. I'll introduce the other judges. Tori McPhail, as we've already met, is the James Beard Award-winning executive chef of Commander's Palace, partner at Sobu and the brand new, we've been open for a week, Picnic Provisions and Whiskey, acclaimed author, and my absolute favorite partner in crime for building creative pairings, bar none. Daniel Holtzman is an accomplished author and photographer, co-founder and chef of the Meatball Shop with 6 locations in New York City, and co-creator with his brother Eli of the Foodie Project, which is really cool. You should check it out. I'm not going to say I spent 10 minutes rolling my mouse over Daniel's face on the Meatball Shop website. Maybe it was 8 minutes. but you should try it. Not now, but you should try it. It's kind of cool. Susan Spicer. is the award-winning author of Crescent City Cooking, Unforgettable Recipes from Susan Spicer's New Orleans, a really good book, and prominently displayed at the airport. Like a huge display. I don't know how much you paid for that. And multiple James Beard award-winning chef owner of Bayona, Mondo, and Rosedale restaurants. And she makes the best damn sweetbreads I've ever had the pleasure of eating. Dickie Brennan, as we know, is one of the 72 Brennans here in the room today. And runs Dickie Brennan and Company with 4 wonderful restaurants here in New Orleans. A dear friend and someone who taught me how properly to cross Poydras. I'll tell you about that later. Sorry, Britannia. And now for our moderators. On the left, we have, representing the world of wine, Mitch Frank. He is aside from being a dear friend, he is the news editor of the Wine Spectator and sole occupant, along with his dog Boudreaux, of its New Orleans bureau. He has 20 years in the magazine industry, both in print and digital, and has had multiple wonderful cover features in The Spectator. Just don't ask him about the Mets this year. It's not pretty. Representing the world of cocktails on the right, we have Dave Wondrich. We've already met Dave today, but I want to say that he is widely hailed as one of the world's foremost authorities on the history of the cocktail and one of the founders of the modern craft cocktail movement, and that is no small feat. He's a James Beard award-winning author and senior drinks columnist at the Daily Beast. Dave was also a founding partner in BAR, which is the nation's leading training program for bartenders and mixologists. So now I would like to throw first to Mitch to tell us just a little bit about the concept of wine and food pairings.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
And thank you, T. I wanted to know if there was anybody in the theater who's not related to you. First of all, the secret to good wine pairing is to first book a table at Commander's and then order the shrimp tasso Henneken and ask Dan what you should pair with it. I think that's a good introduction. Obviously, pairing wine and food goes back hundreds of years. It's really a question of balance. You're balancing the acidity, the tannins, the fruit of the wine, the alcohol as well. And we've all had those moments. You gotta tinker and play with it. But when you find the perfect pairing, it's not the pairing where they go well together, but where they elevate each other. So we'll see if we've hit that today.
So Dave, if you'll tell us a little about pairing cocktails with food.
Well, cocktails are wine by other means. They began with punch in the 1600s when people ran out of wine and beer and had to reconstruct it using spirits and other ingredients. And they basically copied the same flavor profiles, but they added a little extra zing. And people have been pairing cocktails with food ever since. It's nothing new. It's not some crazy trend from the coast. It's organic. It's been here in New Orleans ever since the beginning. It's fun. That's important, I think.
Yeah.
And it goes best with the kinds of food. It goes best with like small bites of really spicy and rich and highly flavored food. And then you can get a cocktail that can match it and complement it. And I think that description of food kind of covers pretty much what we're having and what New Orleans specializes in. So,
well, I think you're gonna enjoy what we have to serve for you tonight. It's gonna be fun. So our final judges, my friends, are all of you. You all enjoyed a cocktail break, and all of the cocktails and wine samples that you had numbers. The ones that you brought with you, I hope you brought some back, unless you drank all of them. But those correspond to the order in which we're serving. Basically, most of you over here were cocktail number 1, wine number 1, number 2, number 3 up here, and number 4 over here. So if we have a tie among these 4 very opinionated judges, I'm gonna throw to you to use your imagination. You know, you're not enjoying the food. I'm sorry. It would have been really crazy to try to do that, but we're all pros here, and we can figure that out, right? All right, so let's go. Tori, can you tell us about the first dish we're serving tonight?
Actually, I've got no idea what we're eating. I just know my speech is done, and I got cocktails in front of me, so let's have it
Well,
happen.
you know, when you open a restaurant, plan a symposium, all the other things that we've got going on, I'm sure you will be reminded of the wonderful dish that you created as we serve it to you now.
So beautiful, fresh redfish, right? Fresh lime juice, a little bit of fresh celeriac, fresh herbs, a little bit of cayenne pepper. Just very, very simple, clean, refreshing, but a nice way to start a meal.
And a nice little bit of cold smoke on the redfish to add some interesting layers of complexity here. Also a little hint, a little bit of avocado to give some richness to the dish. And so, Mitch, if you'll tell us about the first wine.
The first wine we got fittingly for a collaboration day as a collaboration. This is a Riesling from Washington State by Chateau Saint Michel, which is the largest producer of quality wine in Washington State. But it's a partnership with a German Riesling producer, Dr. Lucen. It's the Eroica 2015 Riesling. Eroica is named for a Beethoven symphony, and I love this wine because it's a real complex mix of flavors. You've got like peach aromas, and then you've got kind of citrus on the palate. It's off dry, so there's some sweetness there, but it goes great with the food. I found that just tasting it, I think it goes really well with the avocado and kind of, you know, cuts through the fat of that.
And interestingly, you don't get a vote. Dave, tell us about the cocktail we're enjoying here.
Well, the cocktail, I could say that it's called the Tequila Mockingbird #2 because different people have great ideas at different times, and sometimes they're the same idea. But it's, I would say it goes great with this. It's tequila, a little bit of limoncello, some lemon juice, a couple dashes of bitters. It's got the acidity that cuts and balances out the avocado. It's got a little bit of sweetness that kind of cushions the fish. But that's not really the reason why this is the best pairing. The reason why this is the best pairing is that this is T. Martin's favorite drink.
It is, actually, yes.
So I think we all owe it to her, really.
So I think we're already seeing that our moderators are going to be
her.
pushing their own agendas. Chefs, what do you think?
Who are you talking to?
Chefs, there are 4 chefs. I will mention to those of you who don't know that Dickie Brennan is a classically trained chef. Calling you out. It's going to be awfully quiet if y'all don't talk.
I think it's so delicious that
They're
I'm
busy
having
eating.
a hard time stopping eating to speak.
Exactly.
That's the first piece of the puzzle. I also think that when you're pairing wine with food, it doesn't have any specific ingredient other than grapes, which can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction, right? So this cocktail, it's a lot easier for me to taste the ingredients that are in there and say, well, that's not in this dish. And then I would think, well, why am I not drinking an avocado cocktail, which seems like it would go really well with the avocado in this dish.
On the other hand, you do have tequila.
I do have tequila, and it's a tequila cured.
And you do have the
redfish.
acid.
I do have the acid, and there's the spice that goes with the spice.
Right. And tequila. I'm just saying. I don't know. I like
Apparently
tequila.
there's tequila involved.
So what was interesting is I tried the redfish, then I had the cocktail, and then I had a little more of the redfish. Actually, the other way around. I tasted it afterwards, and the drink tasted totally different after I'd eaten the redfish.
I do think it's interesting.
And you had
that-
to say it was T's favorite drink. But
I think I know where you're going with this.
never mind.
I will say that the
me try the
avocado
wine again.
changes the pairing a lot. When you get a bite with the avocado, it really does change how it plays with the wine and the
Well,
cocktail.
there's the celery
I think
root
both of
too.
them,
You know, which has the
Yes.
little vegetal and kind of nuttiness that I think is pretty nice with the wine.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's such a good wine pairing.
Yeah.
It goes really well with the wine, like really, really, really well.
All right, well, I have to keep the trains running on time here. Tori, what are you thinking?
Well, I'll tell you what, I love all three. The dish, first of all, is absolutely fantastic. It's a perfect balance of flavor, right? Sweet, sour, salt, pepper, bitter, and you got that umami flavors, which we all love in fantastic dishes. So the first few bites of food have just been wonderful. I love the wine. But I like that lime. I like the avocado. For me, it kind of goes down to Mexico. I love tequila. Tequila is a big boy type of a spirit, and one of my favorites. So I don't know if we get to vote yet, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Well, why don't we vote? Chef, what's your favorite pairing?
I like the cocktail myself.
I'll go 100% wine.
Wine.
Cocktail.
Do we think there's any chance that our moderators can sway that in one way or another?
Well, Vicky's related to tea, and Tori works for her. So I think it's obvious where the money lies.
All right, raise your hand
end of the day.
raise your hand if you
Mitch,
tasted
I think
wine
the
number
tequila
one and cocktail
sunrise
number
is
one.
lovely, but
Mitch, you can't impugn the integrity of our fine judges. I mean, really, that's
I've got to throw it to the audience.
just
If you
wrong.
tasted wine number one and cocktail number one, in your mind, what would be the best pairing with the dish?
I heard cocktail first.
I heard wine a lot.
tequila.
If it's wine, say wine. Wine! If it's cocktail, say cocktail.
Cocktail!
Cocktail wins!
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting result.
I guess tequila and ceviche.
As someone who has done a lot of wine pairings, and certainly it's just been a joy over the years. I can't even express what it's been like working with Chef Tori and his team developing great wine menus. This was an exciting challenge, and I'm not going to say I pushed back on T when she told me to do this, but she's usually right. And so that's a fascinating result. So cocktail one. Tori, can you tell us about the second dish we're serving, the oysters?
So oyster and absinthe dome is one of the dishes that I researched and started studying when I became the chef at Commander's Palace, probably a little more than 16 years ago. And I think it's a great dish because it provides great Louisiana seafood. We do this in a very nice Parisian style, and we make a warm oyster stew with pork belly, artichokes, fresh chervil, tarragon, and some local absinthe or herb saint. So elegant, refined, beautiful, well-rounded. And it was the first course we served last night to celebrate our 125th birthday at Commander's Palace.
Well, Mitch, if you'll tell us a little bit about the wine that we're pairing with the oyster and absinthe.
we are having the Sonoma-Cutrer Les Pierres Single Vineyard Chardonnay. Sonoma-Cutrer has been known for their Chardonnay for close to 40 years now. And this is a single vineyard wine from an old gravel riverbed on the Sonoma coast, not far. So you're getting that California sun, but you're also getting the ocean influence. And it's aged in oak, I think, for about a year.
Not a lot of new oak.
No, mix of mostly 3-year-old oak. So you're not really trying to create a big, rich, you're trying to create kind of that balanced chard.
Just to get that oxygen influence in there. And I'll tell you about this wine. What's fascinating, I have the occasion from time to time to study and do blind tastings, and we always try to throw a ringer in there just to confuse everyone. And twice I've been with panels of tasters that are tasting white Burgundy and had this wine slipped in. And in neither panel, one was with 5 people studying for the advanced level of the Quartermaster Sommeliers and 2 or 3 WSET 3s. Nobody caught that this was a California wine, which we can talk all day long about that, which I probably don't have time for.
Dan Davis, he knows how to throw a party.
Dave, what's our cocktail?
Well, we have here a tarragon flip. created by the bar team here at the Commander's Palace. And it is, a flip is an old 19th century type of drink where you shake up a little egg or egg white or egg yolk in with some spirits and just to give it some body. Here we have the base is Finlandia vodka, an excellent source of beverage alcohol, with egg white, cream, a little bit of simple syrup, just a little hint of sugar just to go with the richness. Now, having had this dish that we're anticipating so hotly here, having had it last night, I could say it's a very rich, creamy dish. So the cream finds an echo. The tarragon, this is garnished with a tarragon sprig, that finds an echo. The strega is interesting because it's an Italian liqueur that's in here, and it's an Italian imitation of chartreuse. And so it got a lot of herbs and richness and complexity to it. So for a simple vodka drink, this is anything but simple, and I think with all the richness in it, it will go very well with this, is my prediction.
And I'm curious, from the wine point of view, whether with a dish this rich, whether the wine is going to kind of, support that richness, or whether the kind of citrus and the vibrance is going to cut through that and kind of cleanse the palate. So I'm curious.
Well, I think it'll be interesting, and I think acidity is the key there. When you have rich dishes with lots and lots of fat, you need acidity and lift, and certainly a little bit of citrus lift doesn't hurt. Mm-hmm. But this is, I think, of all the pairings we're tasting tonight, the wine and the cocktail are the most disparate. There's very different directions to come at the pairing, so I'm interested to see what you all think. Let's start with Susan, because you haven't been talking much. And by the way, I'll point out that she's on injured reserve and brought herself here with cast on foot, and we're so glad to have you.
And this is my first alcohol I've had in 2 weeks. So.
Oh my goodness. So,
that's why I'm not talking a lot.
So we'll see around the fourth course how Susan's feeling.
So if y'all have to carry me off the stage,
Give you one with a cocktail.
First thoughts.
Well, first of all, the wine is really elegant and delicious with it. But you always have that compare and contrast, which one, in the cocktail you have those similar elements of the creaminess and the tarragon echoing the absinthe or herb saint, if you will. So I'm thinking they're both pretty delicious. The jury's still out on this one.
Well, it's about to be called, so y'all got to move. Dickie, what do you think?
I think we need more soup.
Here, here.
You're not wrong.
Isn't it delicious?
Yeah.
So
Chef Torrey?
I'll tell you from my perspective, I'm always amazed when we sit down and eat our food in the dining room. Like even the garlic bread tastes good. For us, I'm sick of making it in the kitchen, and things just taste different. But the soup itself or the stew it's salty. It's got some spice to it, but it's well balanced. It's perfectly made. There's a lot of herbs. You can taste all the different round types of flavor. As I taste the wine up front, it's spectacular. It's beautiful and round. But as I taste them together, the wine kind of leaves me a little flat towards the end. And it tasted amazing ahead of time. The cocktail, however,
I'm not liking where you're going with this.
Sorry, buddy. The cocktail, however, has got that creamy component to it, which I think stands up really, really well to the creaminess of the soup. But it's big, it's bold, it's got enough structure to it to really kind of carry it through and almost cleanse the palate in between each bite. So,
And that is important, especially with richer dishes.
I will say I like the creaminess of the cocktail. I think is beautiful with the soup. I find that the herbal note in the cocktail, which I love on its own, kind of overshadows the finish of the soup, and that's where I'm leaning towards the wine.
I think
The
Dave may have an opinion on that.
The cocktail is throwing me a little bit too. There's definitely a sweeter component.
I mean, it's definitely a rich pairing,
Yes.
and you wouldn't want to have two of these with, but with this, I love the way that this is such a rich soup that the cocktail, I think, brings in that richness. And and cushions it and supports it and echoes back and forth between the Strega and the absinthe in the stew. And I don't know. I think it's kind of an out of left field, but pretty cool pairing.
Daniel, if you'll give your opinion and then vote.
I mean, my opinion is that there are certain places that wine just simply cannot go. And when it comes to body, a full-bodied wine is nothing like a rich, creamy soup with bacon and corn and artichokes, all the herbs. You got oysters in here. This is basically giving me a heart attack, and I want one. And the truth of the matter is that when I first tasted this cocktail, it was a little bit sweet for my taste because I have a very dry palate. And then I had a sip of the soup, and what you said earlier about a great pairing elevates both. Well, I'm having a hard time not figuring out which to eat. You know what I'm saying?
I will tell you that I had the same reaction to the cocktail. It felt a little sweet at first, but man, not that I'm voting. But your vote.
My vote is a 100% cocktail.
Chef Torrey.
Wow. Going cocktail.
Chef Spicer.
No pressure. God bless America.
Oh.
Do we need more soup?
I think Dickie wants more soup.
You know.
She studied in France.
I know. And I, you know. I'll go cocktail.
Woo! Dickie?
I love when you said, certain dishes marry with cocktail, and it's that spicy and something that's just rich. I don't know. The wine works for me a little bit better than the cocktail. And I'm definitely a gin fizz. I know T and my sister are tequila drinkers, but I'm a fizz drinker. And,
I'm a fizz drinker too.
But I think I'm gonna go with the wine with the soup.
Well, the cocktail wins.
I don't know.
I guess I need a slow gin fizz.
All right, I'm feeling a little nervous right about now.
You know, Dan, the grand award has to be renewed each year. And Dickie has an excellent program.
I know where you live.
And that was a fantastic selection you did.
So our next food is, I think, probably my favorite on the lineup, just because it's fascinating and interesting and also incredibly rich, and the texture and flavors there. It was probably also the most difficult thing to decide on a pairing. And so if you'll tell us about the mousse.
Yeah, so I love foie gras, but we decided to do chicken liver mousse today, right? It's American, comes from here, so
Cheaper.
it's cheaper. True.
We did just open a restaurant.
You're just feeding us. You know, it's not like you had to make it fair.
No, so it's but it's American food. You know what I mean? I love foie gras, but it's not, Anyway, so good cognac, caramelized shallots, good herbs, salt, pepper, beautiful chicken livers, serum, pureeum, pass some beautiful chicken liver mousse on top of some grilled bread, and beautiful, very well-rounded, amazing flavors. And I love the char of the bread and the richness of that chicken liver. It's gonna be good.
Mitch, what's our next wine?
I was really excited that you picked this, Dan. I am a big lover of Italy, and this is Michele Chiarlo's 2015 Barbera Le Orme.
It's a spicy meatball.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I got the meatball man right here.
I know, that's right. Seriously, go to the website. You need to go to his website. It's so cool.
Michele Chiarlo, they make Barolo. They're in Piemonte. They make Barolo. But really what they do a beautiful job with is their Barbera. It's a fantastic value. This is from Asti, which is not far from Barolo, but is really known for Barbera. And it's aged in oak, because Barbera is a great, rich grape, but it needs a little bit of oak for that structure. And I am very curious how it's going to do with the chicken liver mousse, because you've got it's got an earthy flavor, and I think it's going to go well. But
not that I'm nervous about our results so far, but I am going to say, judges, focus on the interplay of the Barbero with the toast on the croutons.
Now, come on.
And then
Really? Really? Seriously?
All right, tell us about the cocktail. Come on.
I'm a little suspicious because I heard that the chili peppers on top were soaked in one of the cocktail ingredients.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That seems very sketchy to me.
Suspect. Very suspect.
Okay, this
High-end, if you will.
the caper airplane, it has no capers in it, is a modern play on the paper airplane, which is another modern drink that's another twist on the aviation cocktail, an old one. This is what bartenders do these days on those long winter nights when they're sitting around and nobody's in the bar. It starts with American cognac, Woodford Reserve bourbon, a very mellow, kind of rich. And
That's a great description. By the
you
way.
know, it's our version of cognac. It's rich, chewy, a little bit soft, but it's got an extra little bit of kick-ass that cognac often doesn't have. But that's the base, and then it's got one of the coolest ingredients that's out there now is this thing Caperitif from the Cape, South Africa. This was something that they made. It was an aperitif wine that they made in South Africa in the 1920s and 1930s, and then it went away, and some South African distillers or winemakers brought it back, recreated it, and it's got local botanicals to South Africa, which is cool, and it's dry and a little bit spicy. And so there's that, and then a little bit of Aperol, a very low alcohol Italian version of the same, just to round it out. So this is kind of a cool, fairly simple drink that's going to have a lot of sophistication to it.
Is there any fruit juice in here? It's like a little pulpy.
There might be some lemon juice in here, I believe. Yes, there is lemon juice in here. Sorry about that. So for the acidity, we'll need the acidity to go with something as rich as
Tastes like oranges.
we're getting here. Yeah,
Maybe.
That's the Aperol.
Oh, the Aperol.
that's the
I feel
Aperol.
like we talked a little more about the cocktail than the wine.
Well, you'll notice that Caperitif is made by a winemaker. Because
I know.
when you have wine
One
that
of my
goes
favorite
bad,
winemakers.
you turn it into alcohol, into hard liquor.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. So maybe if I could ask Daniel, before you taste, what are your thoughts? You've tasted the wine and the cocktail. What are your thoughts first about those while everyone else is tasting?
This is a very difficult one because that is one of my favorite wines in the world, and it's so delicious, and it's a great example of an excellent glass of like light-bodied red wine that I could just drink all day. And I'm not a cocktail guy. I'm the type of person that thinks the booze in its own perfect, pure distilled bottle is as good as it gets, and you can only go downhill from there. But this is so delicious. And all I want to do is drink one of these cocktails. So I feel like we're in for a neck and neck dead heat.
I don't like where you're going.
I like this cocktail a lot moving into this.
Dickie, you've tasted both and the food. Where are you?
I mean, it's my favorite cocktail so far.
Dear Lord.
And there again, we're doing
Sorry.
something classic and basic, but we're garnishing it with some marinated peppers. It's got some
And I will
work
say,
in that.
and definitely make sure you get a bite. You guys are almost, you're finishing
I
all
think
of
we
your-
need another one.
Yeah, we need more.
I mean,
Can we get, I don't know.
Have another round.
Oh, yep, there we go. I
have to say-
thought that might happen. Tori, where are you?
So I got to tell you, this is a little more unusual than. Sure, go ahead. Come on.
oh, thank you.
Go ahead. So the interesting thing here, aside from flavor,
That's awesome.
We didn't plan that at all.
so the interesting thing here, aside from extraordinary flavor, and the food itself is balanced. It's got acid, sweet. It's got all this richness, the umami flavor of the liver and all that. The textural balance that I get from the tannins in the wine somehow to me cut through the richness of the chicken liver, and that for me the wine is the one.
I will tell you, there's a depth of flavor in this dish and an earthiness in this that is reflected in both the cocktail and the wine, but more the wine than the cocktail.
It is,
Oh,
it
come on.
is-
And now,
I mean, if
Susan-
there was food that was created to be eaten with cocktails, It's this dish.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the classic. In England, they would have called it a whet, something to whet your appetite, and they would have served it with a bowl of punch. Punch is spirits plus lemon juice and sugar. Spirits plus lemon juice and sugar in the cocktail.
Dave, you're
I think
getting
it's
greedy.
perfect.
I totally agree. If my son Richard's still here, he's been working on a duck mousse, and I wish you'd come taste this. And
We
This
can
is
arrange that.
so
Susan,
damn
you're
good.
the first vote.
This chicken liver mousse
What's the vote?
is off the chart.
I gotta say that this is like
Cocktail.
the best chicken liver mousse that I think I've ever
It's so
eaten.
good.
It's off the
unbelievable.
chart.
It's so
Lord.
delicious.
Chris Lynch downstairs.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Chris Lynch, let's give him a hand. So, Chris Lynch is our chef de cuisine at Commander's Palace and is preparing all of this food and made the mousse himself, which is fantastic.
Way to go.
Susan, you're the first vote.
I love this cocktail, and I'm kind of like you. I'm not, I'm really not a big cocktail drinker. I love my glass of wine at the end of the day. It's like my, cup of coffee in the
real big
morning,
ones.
and I really love to pair food and wines. I mean, that's one of the things that I really enjoy, to challenge myself as a chef and everything. So while I really love to drink this cocktail, and at first I thought it was gonna, I'm going with the wine. The wine is just delicious.
So I do want to
love
say
the
about the
complexity.
cocktail. It is a riff on the paper airplane, and it's called the caper airplane, which doesn't mean capers like the little pickle.
It means it's gonna
you
steal
do.
the show.
It is the Cape of the Cape of South Africa, where this amazing aperitif comes from. So,
But
what is your vote, Dickie?
Cocktail.
Uh-oh.
Wine.
There's something about the bitterness of the chicken liver and the peppers, which are like sweet and vinegary. It just goes really well with that cocktail. I'm going cocktail 100%.
And Tori?
I'll tell you what, that is really freaking good. I mean, it's great, but I'm telling you, I'm wine all the way.
Oh, it's another tie! So, top right, most of you had wine number 3 and cocktail number 3, yeah? All right, if you're wine, scream wine. If you're wine, scream wine louder. If you're cocktail, scream cocktail.
I really want Rich to try that.
The wine wins! I've got to record the votes, I'm sorry.
The fix is in. The fix is in.
For those of you who are wondering, it's now 2 cocktails and 1 wine. So Chef Tori, our final dish, which I find it challenging. I think everyone in our business finds it challenging to find great pairings with dessert.
Yeah.
It's always a struggle. And I can find conflicting instructions from every brilliant mind about how you pair wine or anything with dessert. And it's always, always, always a struggle. So tell us about this dish. And one of the things I want you all to know that we have so much fun with at Commanders when we're trying to figure out, you do a great wine dinner and you don't know how to end it if they don't make a dessert wine. And one of the things that Tori brilliantly conceived early on in our partnership of pairing food and wine was to have a little bit of a savory component to the dessert so that you can pair it with wine that's not necessarily a dessert wine. And that is very much what this dish is.
So for dessert, we have an orchard cobbler. I grew up in Washington State, so we have apples, we have pears, so brown sugar, candy pecans, a little bit of cobbler batter. We bake that off in the oven, cinnamon, nutmeg, all those really good baking spices that you come to know. So crispy on the top, creamy on the bottom, fantastic fruit, and it's a good combination with just a little bit of salt in there and some fresh local sugar.
Fresh local sugar.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
a thing.
Louisiana, come on.
Louisiana
You
sugar.
got cane.
So Mitch, I think there's a wine here.
It's white port.
It is.
How many people out there knew there was white port?
Raise your hands.
This is the Ferrera Dona Antonia white port. It is basically a special reserve wine from Ferrera, which is port house. And white port is made much the same way as red port. You take the grapes and they stomp them and they start the fermentation, and then they add brandy to stop the fermentation at some point and raise the alcohol level, but leave some of the residual sugar behind. And then the wine is aged for a long time in oak. This is a great wine. Like a lot of wines from the Douro Valley, it's kind of a blend, not because they were trying to create a blend, but because the vineyard is a blend of multiple grape varieties, including Malvasia Fina, Codega, Rabagato, Arinto. It's kind of their way of hedging their bets by having a whole bunch of different varieties that might ripen at different times. And I think it's a fantastic example of white port.
You can really taste the Arinto.
Yeah. No, that's more Rabagato.
That jumped out at me.
Dave.
Well, we've got a rye Manhattan here, rye whiskey, vermouth, bitters. Now, rye whiskey, New Orleans might be in the South, but it's rye country. It was always a rye city, not a bourbon city. The rye used to come down from western Pennsylvania, come down the Ohio and the Mississippi, all the way down here, and it was always what people drank here. The Manhattan cocktail, invented in the early 1880s as Italian vermouth starts coming into America, and people realized that a regular cocktail, which was booze with bitters and sugar, might be a little too strong for all-day drinking. And if you cut it with a little bit of this vermouth stuff, you could drink more cocktails. And it didn't suffer in flavor. So this is it's a classic invented in New York, but the first city outside of New York to adopt the Manhattan was New Orleans in 1885. It was a new drink, and it became the sensational drink in New Orleans. Some people later claimed it was invented here, which who knows? But nonetheless, it is as New Orleans as you can get with a history of over 150 years, not 150, over 130 years, and rich and flavorful, and a perfect complement to a nice. To say that the dessert comes from Commander's Palace is to say that it's rich and flavorful.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about all day drinking.
You're in New Orleans, man.
But I will tell you, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. So,
Well said.
Dan,
That's right.
then why wasn't this at 9 a.m.?
Can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
I would like, if I can just interrupt for a second.
Yes.
Since we do finally all have glasses, and hopefully the audience does as well, I'd like to raise a toast to Ella Brennan and to this fantastic event.
who invented the eye opener?
Exactly. And who really recognized both wine and spirits' place in American hospitality and cuisine. So,
Thank you.
I will drink to that.
to Ella.
And I'll drink to it all day.
I notice how many of us raised our wine glass.
So, Dickie, I'm calling on you first on this one.
Man, is Alex out there?
Alex is here somewhere?
Remember that time we bought a case of 1929 Ferrara back in 1980 in Houston? That was a great memory. In fact, Dad and Alice sent David Guglielmo over to say, what the hell are y'all doing buying this? And then we said, well, we only drank half of it and we sold the rest.
For young restaurateurs, that's not the way you make money.
So this is bringing back a great memory to my cousin. Can we do a tie? Both of these work so well with this dessert.
I have to say, I do really enjoy this port. This is quite
Port's
lovely.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really got a fantastic mix of just the richness and sweetness to stand up the dish, but at the same time, the acidity to cut through it at the end and the alcohol. I love, Manhattan is kind of my go-to drink with rye. I am more of a rye guy than a bourbon guy. I find that the alcohol is a little too much on this with this dish for me personally.
With the cocktail. Interesting.
Daniel,
with
where
the
are you?
port.
Cocktail with the dish.
See, this is where we differ.
Daniel, your vote.
I gotta say, I'm from Manhattan, and I don't love a Manhattan always. This is so delicious, and it's very difficult because they're both actually very similar. When you look at both of them,
Yes.
they're both the same thickness, the same color. They both have a similar sweetness.
Okay. Am I crazy? What if I did this?
I think that
No, that's not crazy at all.
I'm going to try that.
the only is that cheese on top.
It's cream cheese.
There's a little bit of cream cheese on the top of this, and I gotta say that the only thing that throws me on the side of the wine is that the cream cheese has a certain funkiness that the wine also pairs with, and so at their base they're perfectly tied, and then the wine just barely ekes out a win.
I will agree. This was a really close one for me. And when Kristen, our bar manager at Commander's Palace, proposed a Manhattan for this dish, I thought she was crazy. But it works.
Turns out she knows what she's doing.
But the port's better. Sorry, but it works.
I get
Susan,
the
where
sour
are
cream
you?
on the beginning, but the nuts, the pecans, at the end.
I think we should have Mitch and Dave arm wrestle for this one.
Can we Indian wrestle?
I don't
Susan, where are you?
I'm with the wine all the way on this one. I do find the alcohol just a little too much to, I think it just kind of takes over a little bit, where this just is like a beautiful kind of.
I will accept your vote for wine. I'll also say that temperature-wise, it makes a difference. And obviously, we're staging this out. When it's really hot, the cocktail works a little bit better with it, and that makes a difference. I don't know why, but we can argue about it later. Chef Tori, what do you think?
So this is complex and it's hard.
Yeah.
And I know I should be choosing one or the other, but individually they are remarkable.
If it makes it easier for you, your vote doesn't matter at this point because
Okay.
the wine already won.
But I will tell you, for me professionally, I taste for a living.
Yeah.
All three together are pretty special.
Yeah.
Really, honestly. If I was
we're
sitting
gonna
down
do
in a
this.
restaurant and having all three of these as the trifecta for an amazing dessert, I would be over the moon excited.
Taking Dave's lead,
Really,
I've
really
already
good.
mixed mine, and that actually
That
is
is
really
good.
amazing.
That's really good.
So we'll be seeing on the menu at in the chef's playground
I
shortly.
can't wait to get back to the restaurant and play with all of this. So,
I have 6 knives left and 4 forks, and I'm just wondering if we can continue.
That's if the argument gets really ugly.
Let the cutting begin.
well, it's a tie.
Whoa!
Courses 1 and 2 were the
Two rounds.
cocktail.
You see.
Courses 3 and 4 were the wine. But I think what is really, really fascinating about this is that we need to change the way we do beverage pairings on our menus. And this was an eye-opening, enlightening experience for me. And I absolutely will be including cocktail pairings on our tasting menus, which I just never felt the impetus to do. And what a horrible thing, because I'm leaving out such a world of creativity and such a world of amazing experience that I can bring to our customers and our dear friends at Commander's Palace and all of our restaurants. And why would you want to limit your toolbox? Why would you want to do that? It's important, and it's actually not as hard as we make it think it is. So,
Not to mention an opportunity to sell that case of Chinar you ordered.
I know, yeah, that's right. Well, you know, when you get stuck with a case,
Bartenders will drink that in a week.
when you accidentally get a case of Galliano instead of a bottle of Galliano, what are you going to do with it? Let's make a cocktail and do a pairing. I would like, if you would please, Mitch and Dave, just some parting comments.
Well,
And by the way, what an amazing panel of palates.
This guy right here.
I would have a drink or a meal or anything with any of you any day, and I love listening to you talk about food and wine and also cocktails. It's okay. But Mitch, parting comments.
I think the lesson at the end of the day is what I always tell people when they start asking me. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I like, this kind of wine or that kind of wine." The message at the end of the day is drink what you like and try as many things out there as you can, preferably not at one meal, but there is a world of fantastic, interesting stuff to try, whether it's wines from arcane regions or wines from undiscovered producers or cocktails with creative ideas. I think one of the greatest things we've seen in dining since I first started writing about wine is the incredible creativity of our American winemakers and brewers and distillers and our bartenders. And I think we live in a golden age.
Yep.
We do.
Well said.
Here. I agree with that 100%. If you look at old engravings from the 1700s and you see British gents carousing, they always have a bowl of punch on the table and some bottles of wine. And I've always been a subscriber to that philosophy. Why can't I have both? There's no reason not to. It's you don't have to drink too much, but you can split your drinking into you can have a cocktail, you can have a glass of wine, you can do that two pairing thing. You can make them small. They make small cocktail glasses, and it's delightful and it gives you variety. The wine supplies some things the cocktail can't do. The cocktail supplies some things the wine can't do. They're both wonderful when put together by people as intelligent and caring as the people who put together these pairings. It can be done well. It can also be done very badly. You don't want to be drinking martinis with steaks through your whole meal, because I've seen that. Well, you can do it. You can do it, but it's kind of rough
delicious.
after a while. It's kind of rough after a while. I don't know.
Next day.
But yeah, fair enough. I'm never going to say, don't do that. But now that I think
put the
about
little
it.
onions in there, the little pickled onions in there.
Well, okay, so that's a salad course. Okay. But anyway,
Dan used to have
I
more
think this
hair.
was fascinating, and I think a good beverage program has to encompass beverages in general, everything you can have.
Absolutely.
Because
It
it's all
must.
good. We're living in a golden age.
And
Beer,
I
wine,
think
spirits.
the key is you don't leave anything out of your toolbox.
Yeah.
And what Mitch said, drink what you like, and it's when we as restaurateurs, when customers ask us, they're so intimidated sometimes to talk about wine, and if you have a tome of wine or the cocktail program, it is putting them at ease. That is the important thing, and it's drink what you like. Tell me what you like, and I will help you find an amazing experience, and I derive so much joy from that, and that is hospitality at its essence. Thank you so much for being on this panel.
Also, it sounds like there's a white Toyota Corolla getting towed. There's a white Toyota Corolla getting towed.
Do you have the tag number?
Well, I think they're about to march us off the stage, so T, come on out.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was amazing. How about that?